0 of the 4 Fantastic Four films have managed to gain the love and support from the majority of the audience. Yeah, there's quite a bit of liking towards these two schlubs, but yo, after that last one, it's sad. Sadder than when you on the toilet and you feel the splash damage. And then you're just sitting there like... It's been a few months now since it was officially announced that the juggernaut of a company that is Walt Disney Studios bought the assets to 21st Century Fox's film properties, including the X-Men characters and of course, Marvel's first fam. Since then, CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, went on to say how the people over there are looking to expand the Marvel Cinematic Universe to include the new heroes. And so this raises the question, how would they do it? How would Marvel just seemingly introduce these weirdos 10 years down the line? I mean, writing the X-Men in is one thing, but what about the Fantastic Four? Well, today it's speculation day. These are just thoughts I either came up with or are interesting concepts I found online. Think of this as like when you were being read a story in kindergarten, except it's all 12 stories compiled into one video, and I can't actually see you. Number 1. When worlds collide. One of the most common ways fans think about to bring about the team of 4 into the Marvel Cinematic Universe is through the introduction to parallel universes. Some of the team members, namely Reed Richards, are seen as more interesting characters when they're older and wiser, not competing in science fairs with a bunch of 5th graders. The essence of his character is intellect, leadership, but most importantly, experience. He has got to have been around for quite some time. He's considered to be the smartest and nerdiest of the nerds in the traditional Marvel universe, and he's never been addressed or hinted at. One way they could work around this is by having the Reality Stone or Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet stretch reality in such a way that causes a ripple, leading to these people from another Earth being stuck here in the main timeline. Though it's easy for me to just spit that out into the mic, translating that onto the big screen would probably just confuse a whole lot of people. Cloverfield Paradox was a really confusing film. Not spoiling what happens there, but the whole thing was just really confusing. Some people were so confused that they wanted to throw themselves in the garbage disposal. That's a big gamble on Marvel's part. Fighting aliens is one thing, but when you're introducing another Earth from another universe in a movie that's already pushing the boundaries of being overstuffed, it just doesn't seem like an idea that Marvel heads would run with. Number 2. The Infinity Warp. Avengers Infinity War is just a few months away as of this video's release, and one of the things we saw in the D23 trailer that was interestingly left out of the officially released one was the clip of Thanos crushing and throwing a planet, or moon, onto the Avengers. They may have cut that clip from the final film itself, but Thanos is well known for destroying planets. After the events of the 3rd and 4th Avengers film, we could potentially see Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben going on a research mission to one of the planets Thanos destroyed. This could be any plot-driven thing, like the cliche government bad guys trying to weaponize something, but bottom line is, whatever was left on that planet infects them and gives them their powers. This would yet be another retelling of their origin story, and God knows how we love rehashed origin stories. And we'd be seeing them getting used to their powers for the first time all over again. The idea itself isn't so far-fetched, all of that wouldn't be too confusing to critics and audiences alike, but what makes it less a possibility is that it's literally the same movie as the other two. Let me put it this way. Let's look at the Spider-Man movies. The original Spider-Man film and first Amazing Spider-Man movie had a lot of plot point similarities. And what Marvel did with Homecoming, they managed to do an origin story-esque plot for Peter Parker without simply rehashing the old kill Uncle Ben again and having the villain have internal monologues.
Get the spaghetti.
Whether you liked the film or not, they managed to tell us a new Spider-Man story while still making it feel like we haven't seen Spider-Man before. Because this was a brand new, all different Spider-Man. What I'm saying is that you don't have to explain how these campy heroes got their powers again. We can get a brief description of that through maybe some dialogue, and then we can be caught up to speed. That's why I have my doubts on this one. Number 3. The First Family, the original Avengers. The silliness and campiness is very much apparent in all of their outfits. Something that doesn't look like it fits within our time. No one would look at this today and say,
yeah, this is Gucci.
It's just not. Captain America himself looked pretty goofy in that Avengers outfit. But it's lightweight acceptable to us because his character is from another time. A time when wearing something looking like that was identified as looking like a hero. They tried going the exact opposite way 3 years ago, and they all just ended up looking like a bunch of air conditioners. So why not keep the ludicrousness that is the very concept of the Fantastic Four, and make it feel organic, by also making them characters at a time? What if these four have been around, but during the 1960s? They could be written as the first superhero team that existed in the MCU, but were all lost or presumed dead by the public. Maybe they were fighting Doom and trapped him in the negative zone, an antimatter universe that was often visited by the team of four. But the only way they could have done that is if they trapped themselves in there too. There can be a whole scientific explanation behind it, how 3 years there is 50 years here. It shouldn't be too hard. The issue of different dimensions come up again, but the cool thing about this is that they could wait after the whole Infinity War thing blows over to introduce this new dimension. They could maybe intro it through Doctor Strange or something. That way, they don't have to cram any more into that film. If they went this way, that would explain their outdated attitudes, mannerisms, fetishes, and habits, as they would mirror those of the majority of people's preferences way back then. And so once they get out of the negative zone, so does Doom. From there, you can lead into another movie where they take on other Fantastic Four bad guys, and save Doom for later, so that he could become the villain for an Avengers film where they team up with the Fantastic Four. Number 4, A Return from Space. This one sort of bounces off the last idea, in that they're still from the 1960s, but minus the negative zone. Their own solo group movie is still a period piece, and they've still had their powers for a while, but what if, towards the end of the film, these four decide to go study abroad? Maybe trying to understand some unknown entity out there, because we're never allowed to trust Wikipedia as a real source when they get super close to a black hole. They're almost eaten up by this thing, but they luckily make it out. Not even light itself can escape once inside one of those. So Marvel can really play on that gripping tension. Plus, there's a whole scientific explanation of what happens when you get so close to a black hole. You start accelerating at a faster rate in orbit, time dilation starts taking place, but simply put, 1 hour passing by near there could potentially mean 50 or 60 years have passed on Earth. The closer you are to its center, the more impact time dilation will have. Since this is on wacky comic books, you can just suspend disbelief for a bit and stretch the truth. Straight up just say they went so dangerously close, 5 minutes there became 50 years on Earth. If you've watched the movie Interstellar, then it's easier to visualize and think of how things could play out. When they return from their space adventure, they could find themselves in a world they no longer recognize, adding shock value to the characters, similarly to how Cap was flabbergasted in the end of his first movie. Really, science is a key player so that things feel more grounded and less fiction, even though the concept of fiction is the last thing they need to worry about. That ship sailed when Ruffalo replaced Norton. Number 5, SOKOVIA Reborn. Dr. Doom has been the villain of literally all of the Fantastic Four films, and in none of them does he show how powerful of a ruler he truly is, like in the OG source. The country he ruled from the comics was mentioned in the movies from a decade ago, and was even shown a few times, but it was never really emphasized of how he was such a strong dictator. They might have highlighted that aspect in the unreleased 90s film, but not even 90s kids remember that, so it doesn't really matter. This theory suggests that, after the fall and destruction of Sokovia in Age of Ultron, some random guy gets so pissed off the way things have been that he declares himself ruler of the fallen country, and renamed it into something that just rolls off the tongue: Latveria. In the comics, Victor Von Doom is the ruler of the fake country Latveria. This would fit right in. Latveria is supposed to be in Eastern Europe, and Sokovia was right smack dab in Eastern Europe. If Age of Ultron really did take place in 2015, the same year it was released, then Doom wouldn't necessarily be a beginner at things, but he wouldn't exactly be an expert either. He's still growing and learning. And the Fantastic Four are most likely still getting the hang of things as well. Whether it be another origin story is an entirely different question though. Number 6, the Baxter Building. There was a little plot point in Spider-Man Homecoming that explicitly pointed to the fact that the Avengers Tower was no longer home to the Avengers. Tony Stark moved all things upstate to the Avengers headquarters, and so that left the internet with a flurry of theories going around, speculating as to who went and bought the huge skyscraper of a building. Some say it'll be turned into Oscorp, some think the Daily Bugle since it's a big part of Peter Parker's life, but many are convinced that it will become the Baxter Building, the home to the Fantastic Four team. Theorizers go on to speculate that it was Reed Richards who bought the place with the money he got for having a brain that's as seductive as those creamy microtransactions on Battlefront 2. They'd be moving in from Central City, California, their original home. This would make it incredibly easy to have the Avengers run into them, as they now own one of the biggest skyscrapers in New York. I saw this more as an opening to Oscorp or even the Daily Bugle than anything else, but I wouldn't mind if it became the Baxter building. Number 7. Under the Radar. Under the Radar is a concept that takes a new spin on Reed Richards that may take things a little too far in the movie lineup. It might throw you off a bit, but hear me out on this one. The idea sees Reed doing some research on extraterrestrial life forms years before the events of the first Avengers. He is deemed one of the smartest people on Earth, next to Stephen Hawking, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and of course, Bill Nye the Science Guy. Reed finally discovers something that foreshadows the Chitauri invasion, and he goes around warning everyone about his findings. But the trick is, they don't believe a single word coming out of his mouth. He tries to explain his experiments and logs, but it only makes it look like he's losing his grip on reality. It eventually gets to the point where his friends, or even the government, deem him clinically insane and have him kept at a mental institution. Sue, Johnny, and Ben feel empty without him, and so the team disbands indefinitely. Or maybe the team was never even formed yet. I'm not sure. You can then flash forward to the modern age, after the Chitauri invasion, where they're working tediously to regain Reed's trust again after years of isolation and all that buzz. It's a totally WTF theory, but it doesn't take away the fact that it's interesting to think about. Number 8. Special Intelligence. The Special Intelligence theory sees Reed and Sue under government supervision, and they're experimenting on leftover Chitauri tech. But things go awry, as the two don't agree with the political intentions. They go rogue, abandon the project, and try to escape the grasp of the corrupt. The only gripe I see coming from this is that it does stray too close to the Fantastic Four that dug its very own grave. In that movie, the government was all up in their grill, and their presence was all over the film. Redoing another heavy government-related plot is like when you get unstuck from a cactus and run back into it. Once you've plucked all the spikes out, you don't just go back up and willingly ram into the thing again. But that was mainly the execution, not so much the idea's problem. Still, they'd probably want to be far away from that version as possible. Number 9. The Illuminati. Marvel's Illuminati is a group that not many are really that aware of. Before it became a meme, and yeah, I'm talking about... Marvel's Illuminati group is a team that acts sort of like a government of superhumans. They plan, plot, and spill the beans about what they know. The team usually consists of Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Mr. Fantastic, Professor X, Black Bolt, and Namor. Half of which the general audience really doesn't know jack about. Black Panther is one of those characters though that tends to dip in and out of group meetings, so they'd probably slide him into the mix. Point is, this storyline wouldn't just serve as an intro to the Fantastic Four through Reed Richards, but also to those of the Marvel Cinematic Universe versions of Xavier and Namor. Even though so much hype would be around this movie for so much going on, let's not lose sight of that there's way too much going on. The Illuminati is a story about conflicting ideas and morals. And with this being our first intro to nearly half of the members, the story could easily fall flat on its face without the already established personalities. That's just the surface level problems of it too. I mean, who wants to see a bunch of people in Halloween outfits sitting at a desk talking about politics for 2.5 hours? Gross. They could rework it into a political thriller, sort of like The Winter Soldier, where they mesh in a bunch of action into the mix, but that's up to the writers to save the day. Number 10. Helping the First Captain. Back in Comic-Con last year, it was announced that Captain Marvel will be set in the 90s and will feature the Skrulls as the main villains of the film. What's interesting about the whole thing though, is that they're first and foremost a part of the Fantastic Four Rogues Gallery before anything else. Yeah, they had their little heated debates against Captain Marvel, but they're mainly associated with these four. For those who don't know, the Skrulls are an alien race with shape-shifting powers, which allows them to impersonate individual human beings, like your fake friend who takes credit for work they never even did. So we could see the Fantastic Four, already a team, playing some role in the 2019 movie, helping her take out the Skrulls. Whether that role would be big or small, I wouldn't know. It'd probably be small since they started filming a while back already. But the best part about this concept is that it can go 3 ways. 1, we've never seen Captain Marvel throughout the entirety of the Marvel movies. She's slated to appear in Avengers 4, and we know for sure she's been around since the 90s. So wherever she's been, from fighting aliens across the galaxy or being trapped in another dimension, they could be with her. 2, they could have been kids during the events of Captain Marvel, and they had a small part to play in the Kree-Skrull War. So when they flash forward to modern time, they're a seasoned team of heroes already. Or 3, the same theory a while back, the adult versions of them get stuck in the negative zone. I like the second outcome the most, as the film wouldn't lose too much focus and it'd just be a quick cameo, giving them time to properly cast their adult counterparts. Number 11, a secret invasion. What if some of the Skrulls survived the attack on Earth all those years ago? And what if they resurfaced in the present day, cosplaying really well as one of the Avengers? We could be introduced to 4 specific Skrulls who take on the identities of Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben, and we wouldn't know that that's really not them until towards the end of the movie. It could be a whole new spin on that I am your father scenes, or how it feels to chew 5 gum. It has the potential to be really effective. Either that, or it could totally backfire by being a super predictable plot point from the get-go. Here's hoping it's the former. Number 12, the face of future past. The same way we were introduced to Spider-Man can be the same way we are introduced to the Fantastic Four. Before Civil War, we've never heard of any outright references to Peter Parker. But then came 2016, and Tony's just been stalking him for quite some time. There was no build-up to this. It was just more of a here you go from the studio. In a similar way, Tony Stark and Reed Richards could have an unexplored past, where they once used to collaborate a lot and worked on projects together. They were good partners at one point in time, but Reed leaves him behind and never says a word to him after he finds out that Stark is selling his weapons to extremists and is doing everything morally wrong. He doesn't want to be associated with the Stark name at all. This would mean they've known each other long before 2008. The time when Tony Stark first became Iron Man. And in that time span, between then and now, Reed met Johnny, Sue, and Ben already, got his powers along with his partners, and formed the Fantastic Four a while back. This would void the need for another origin story and just launch the audience straight into the new story Marvel wants to tell. We've seen a similar rendition of this arc with Hank Pym. In the comics, Hank Pym is not supposed to be significantly older than Tony Stark. He was the original Ant-Man, and was actually one of the founding members of the Avengers. He was also the one who made Ultron, not Tony. He's a wife beater too, but that's probably for the best that's not in the movies. But here, he's almost a completely different character with beef against the Stark name. Being associated with any Stark could just be this mega bad omen sign that turns people away to the other direction. This is the one I'm all for. It establishes mystery and intrigue, leaves room to explore an experienced and seasoned Fantastic Four team, and maybe even leave room for an experienced and actually imposing Doctor Doom for once. But I want to hear what you have to say. Which theory was your favorite? Or better yet, do you have any ideas of your own that you'd like to share? Sound off in the comment section below and let me know. And if you really like this video, then feel free to smash that like and subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And for more of my videos, just click right here.